Welcome to Behind the Scenes, the podcast that takes you beyond the field and into the minds of those that shaping the game of baseball. I'm your host, Harrison Cordell Fant, and with me today in our inaugural episode is a very special guest, the 2024 National Champion Head Coach and Coach of the Year, the driving force behind the resurgence and growth of Tennessee baseball into a powerhouse program and a dynamic recruiter leader, Tennessee baseball coach, Tony Vitello. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Driving force is quite the compliment. Might be an overstatement too, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
No, it's a pleasure to be here and talk to you, especially since Omaha and just the experience that Omaha was for, I think, everyone that was there, especially my first time being there, not yours, and definitely not your last for sure. But, you know, busy 12 months for you, especially the last 4 with the national championship. You're coming off leading Tennessee to their first national championship in program history in baseball. Let's back it up, though, and start from the beginning how you got here, because you grew up in a big sports household, a big baseball household. Your dad, Greg Vitello, Hall of Fame coach at high school, coaching a soccer team to 5 state championships, a baseball championship as well at DeSmet Jesuit High School. What was that like growing up in that household?
It was intense. I mean, we were all on board, that's for sure, with his teams. And then eventually I had 3 older sisters. They were all involved in athletics in some form. And of course, they're heavily invested too in what's going on with my dad's programs. And it wasn't the only thing we had going on in life, but it was certainly kind of the center of our household. And the passion everybody had for each win and loss with my dad's programs was again, it was pretty intense. And it kind of helped rear me towards this deal a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, it seemed to help you fall in love with the game of baseball just from, you know, him coaching you and always being around him, obviously, in him coaching teams, right? And you go play college baseball. You go to Spring Hill College, if I'm correct, for your first year down in Alabama. Another
Jesuit school, and there was the pipeline, kind of the connection there. And I had some friends going there. It was get to warm weather for baseball, a storied campus, a field that Babe Ruth had played on, legendary coach Frank Sims. So there was a lot to love there, and I kind of had my reasons why I exited after a year, but it was a great experience to go down there.
Yeah, and you said you exited. You transferred to the University of Mississippi or University of Missouri. Being from St. Louis, Missouri, how did that kind of take place, and what was that like?
Yeah, so my dad, who was a soccer coach as well, had been sending a lot of guys to University of Indiana, which had a great business school, and that's kind of where I had my hopes of going. But I had redshirted at Spring Hill, and to go 2 years in a row without being on the field consistently, my dad and I kind of thought was a dangerous move. So I actually went to Merrimack Junior College for a year to play. And much to the chagrin of my mother, but one thing that I think kids need to know out there is the junior college classes often mirror your first couple of years at a big university anyway. And it was a great opportunity to play. And I played against guys like Mark Burley and Albert Pujols. So it wasn't like the competition wasn't helping me as well, but I needed to get on the field. And then eventually, University of Missouri ends up being the spot because being from St. Louis, they're recruiting a lot of kids. Some of them that my dad was coaching, he had some good players. So they did my dad and me a solid and basically gave me a day-to-day tryout. And Coach Jameson, I still remember the words, said one day we may tap you on the shoulder and tell you that, you know, you don't need to come out anymore. And fortunately, that day never came.
Yeah, and that's got to be a tough thing to deal with, but you know, also motivating day by day, you know, going through the grind and just never being satisfied and knowing that you have to fight for a spot every single day. And that's just an unbelievable story. I don't think I knew that. I don't know how many people did.
Yeah, it was stressful. And again, I'm no fool. I know why I got my foot in the door, but the bottom line is, you know, once you're invited to the party, you don't want to get kicked out. And it was a day-to-day deal where I literally had no friends on the team, or very minimal. Ryan Rollo, Jace Tingler, who's now the bench coach with the Twins, we started to become cage buddies because you got to have somebody you can lean on. But it was kind of almost like I was on an island and, you know, just trying to do the best that I could to survive every single day. And eventually it worked out to where I became a, you know, full member of the team and was there for 3 years and eventually even kind of had a bit of a starting role towards the end of my career. And I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for all that.
Yeah, and the notion that I seem to gather from my research, everything, is that you were the hardest worker there. There's people that haven't seen anyone ever work as hard as you did. And that just kind of seems like it plays into who you are today as a coach, but obviously as a player, where that comes from.
Yeah, and I had some time to make up because the lessons for life and for work ethic were right in front of me. They were in my household with my dad. Just what he lived out, what he preached, and also what he was getting his guys to do at the Smet as I was younger. And it took me too long to jump on board. And maybe I would have been, even though I wasn't that highly skilled, maybe I would have been a little further ahead in my career if I would have jumped on that. But I slowly started to figure out everyone needs to work hard, but especially if you're bottom of the depth chart, you better not let anybody be in the weight room longer or in the cage first or last. So that I think kind of helped me stay alive, so to speak, on this whole day-to-day deal at University of Missouri. And I do remember an important part where I got out on a field and I look around and Roger Clemens's numbers retired on the wall. And it's the ninth inning. I went in for defense as almost like, what am I doing out here? I don't belong out here. These guys are future major leaguers. They're draft picks, All-Americans. And then I kind of had a settling thought in my head is, if I do this coaching thing and can get guys to work, really hard, that comes at different scales, but also are good athletes, it's the perfect storm. You could really do some damage because here I am, at least, standing out here, not a superstar or anything. So that was a weird moment in the ninth inning of a Big 12 competitive game where coaching was kind of on my brain for a second. And again, if you can coach guys like Coach Elander, our third base coach, when I was with him at TCU, he was our best player and our hardest worker, the Kobe Bryant combo. And so that's what we're searching for every year here at Knoxville now.
Yeah, and like you said, that you started your coaching career based off that. Just like to ask you that, but Coach Elander also he seemed like the type of player that you were, just the hardest worker, never satisfied, wanting to get better and better. And that seems like that just meshed with him was perfect, which we'll get to in a second. But your coaching career started in the Summer Collegiate League, is that correct?
Yeah, it did, in Salinas. Beautiful Salinas, California.
Packers, 2002.
Yeah, strawberry fields out there, some unbelievable people. And so I went there and played my last year of summer ball with Salinas. Dave Holt was the skipper, and he was a minor league coach from the Red Sox organization that had kind of settled into just doing this deal in summer ball. And I learned so much from him and wanted to be around him to learn the game a little bit more. And he's the first one to give me an opportunity. And it was a great trial and error deal because we had 4 Missouri Tigers on that team as well. So I got to kind of practice, what is this going to be like me coaching my buddies? Because there were 4 guys that I was very close with, friendship-wise, but it worked out well. I don't think it would have went as smoothly the following year in Missouri if I hadn't had kind of that practice run. And that was a memorable summer. A lot of goofy mistakes. I didn't have money to buy coaching shoes. I remember other teams making fun of the shoes I was wearing. But a building block that I look back on and smile for sure.
Yeah, and everyone has to start somewhere. You started in a summer collegiate league. Not a lot of coaches do that. They end up turning into grad assistant, volunteer assistants. But after that, you went back to Missouri to be an assistant coach for the next 7 years. What was that process like, doing that and at your alma mater where you just played?
Yeah, it was interesting because we had turnover with our coaching staff, and Chow Fanning was one of the guys I got along super well with as a player, and he leaves to go back to his home state, and we need a new pitching coach. And my first day back on campus as a non-player, I'm driving up the hill. If you know University of Missouri, you got to drive up the hill towards the field. And I see this guy walking out of the office, and he kind of looks like a professor. Definitely doesn't look like an athlete, with all due respect to Sean McCann, who I'm referring to. But Coach McCann was our pitching coach and literally helped Coach Jameson turn that thing on its axis and become a really successful program for a decade there in Missouri. And Sean and I became office buddies. I learned so much from him. He basically became another mentor to me, like my father was, like Coach Jameson was, and really helped me fall in love with college baseball and the idea of coaching it. And fast forward, Sean McCann is now our video coordinator. That's his label, but he's a jack of all trades for the University of Tennessee up here, and we still get to work together.
So that moment, would you say, is where you knew this is what I'm going to do. I wanted to coach. This is what I'm supposed to do.
I think it was a slow drip, to be honest with you. I went and got my management degree and then general MBA in business with the thought of I wanted to own a business. And the more you start to break things down, because my parents were teachers, two of my sisters were teachers, and one of them, my oldest sister, she's always looking out for everybody in the family, was wondering, are you going to use your degree or not? And the more you dive into, like I said, Coach McCann really kind of educated me on the ins and outs of college baseball. I still remember the first day I got to see the 11.7 sheet, the roster. And these are guys I played with, or now I'm coaching. And holy cow, was my mind blown. And if the rumors and the fibs and all that could settle and everyone could see that for each team, it's a little different day and time now, but that was mind blowing. But as I started to figure things like that out, this is like running a business. If you're the recruiting coordinator, it's like running your own shop. If you're the infield coach, you're the CEO of the infielders. And then more importantly, if you're the coach of a program, now more than ever, I talked with Coach Van Horn this summer, now more than ever, there's less coaching and there's more managing this and doing this and going to making appearances and doing things. So it is kind of like using your degree. And again, it was a slow drip, but it started to kind of show itself that I really like doing it. And there was maybe a future in.
Yeah, and using your degree, using your experience as a player, knowing what that's like, being in their shoes physically, especially so recently to when you start your coaching career, like a lot of coaches do. But then after Missouri, you decide to go to TCU. Why is that?
Well, I had done nothing but be at University of Missouri as far as Division I baseball goes. 3 years as a player, 8 as a coach. And it just seemed like it was time, to go out and learn something else and experience something else. And Columbia, Missouri is a great college town, but it was, again, kind of all I had experienced. And I kind of had my mind set on, well, I want to live in a city. And I want to flip from working with the pitchers to working with the hitters. And the University of Houston had an opening. And Todd Whitting was someone I had talked to down there because he had exited TCU and was looking for a pitching coach. Well, come to find out, the hitting thing works out at TCU and recruiting, of course, as well, because they hadn't quite found their match there to replace Coach Whitting. It didn't work out for me at University of Houston. But in those conversations, I had other job offers, but again, the timing of this seemed like it was time to experience something else. It was really hard to leave University of Missouri, but if you're going to do it, you might as well go south of the Mason-Dixon line and kind of like my first year of college, get some warm weather. And at TCU, I was so blessed because everything flipped. Now I'm in the South. Now I'm in a different conference. Now it's a private school instead of a public school. Completely different coaching style and way of running the program. And there's no one or right, wrong way to do it, but it was good to experience flip end of it. And then became a hitting coach. And if anyone accuses me of being smart, you're wrong. Here's example number one. I went from pitching to hitting coach the year they went to BB Core bats. And now they've adjusted those things where they're probably pretty hot. But that first year of BB Core, if you remember, you basically had to hit it twice to get it over the fence, especially at a pitcher's park at the time at Lupton. I think they've changed or moved the walls, but that was an interesting transition year, I can tell you that.
Yes, and they don't forget that because that's an important piece. But the fact that you played infield, obviously, you played some outfield too at Missouri, but then started as a pitching coach is just getting your foot in the door, like you said, in any possible way. And I remember those old bats before they went BB Core. It was like a trampoline park.
It was scary.
It was dangerous too, but you saw home runs like 480, 500. It was insane. It was a smart move to do and needed for the game of baseball, but you live and learn.
Yeah, you do, and it's a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
This is me just kind of having a flashback as a little leaguer. I remember playing shortstop, and my dad was always, he tough, disciplined guy, and preached that as well. So you always got to keep the ball in front. And those red line bats came out. They were gray and they're red line. I think they were Easton, but those things were not fair. They were like Uzis. And I remember kind of skating out of the way of a ball a little bit. Unfortunately, my dad wasn't at that game, but now we're present day and they seem to kind of perfect. Louisville Slugger takes good care of us. They seem to have perfected the way these BB Core bats are. but there's a lot of controversy about how tightly wound our ball is compared to others. And, eventually kind of maybe becomes a safety issue. I'm all for offense, and I don't think we're ever going to have the old days of Rosenblatt Stadium where it's football scores. But it is nice when a guy puts a charge into one and it goes over the fence. I don't know how Kavaris Teer's ball did not go over the fence against Texas A&M, but it nonetheless proved to be the game-winning RBI. But yeah, hot topic nonetheless right now.
Yeah, but then you have home runs like Drew Gilbert's, and just that was off the bat, everyone knew it was gone.
Yeah.
Just the moment that was, obviously. But from TCU, you then go to Arkansas in 2014. Tell me about that transition and why. Is that work for Dave Van Horn?
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't know those guys that well. Now, Coach Van Horn and Augie were two of the kind of the big names or coaches that were on a pedestal in the Big 12. And I spent a lot of days on the bench, not necessarily in the game action. And I did observe a lot. I was kind of an active, observer. And so I knew Coach Van Horn wasn't looked up to him. But I think that whole deal started with, at Missouri, unfortunately, we got our brains beat in recruiting-wise a lot when he was at Nebraska or at Arkansas. It was very difficult to beat those guys. But at TCU, now you're kind of in the South, and we had beaten them for some pitchers in recruiting. And they're the ones that said that's kind of what caught their eye a little bit. And so I think Cliff Godwin, who's a superstar, obviously, in college baseball, was maybe an option for them. But at the time, he was at Mississippi and did not leave Coach B's program. So I got a call. And Coach Van Horn, he's got conviction to him. And I guess he had heard enough and learned enough, and he wanted to do it. And I look back, and I was like, why did I take so long to make that decision? But I went and looked around, got to meet those folks, and the bottom line is it was an invitation to join the SEC. And the whole reason I left, an NAIA school or, stayed with baseball, just have done what I like kind of being involved with competition where it's at its highest. That way, if you have success, it's reason to celebrate, and there's no cloud over your head like what else is there. And if you don't have success, it's because you're not good enough against the best, and you need to get to work and figure out what you got to do. And that's what I was presented with by being at Arkansas.
Yeah, the opportunity to learn under a coach like that, the experience he has and the longevity of success that he has, seems, insurmountable, just like a no-brainer almost. And so you go there, you learn a lot, you're very successful there as a coach. And then, 2017, 2018, talk to me about this Tennessee opportunity, how this head coaching job came to fruition, just, the interview process and whatnot.
Yeah, Arkansas I learned the value of Baum Stadium. That's nice on a recruiting visit.
Oh, yeah. One of the nicest in the country.
Not that we didn't work hard, and Coach Van Horn stays active in recruiting, which is beneficial. But we were able to accumulate some good players. And, I remember at draft year, you wish you could, if you're going to lose 4 guys, you wish you could lose 2 pitchers, 2 hitters. Well, there's a year where we kept all the hitters. And then the way college baseball works is you kind of see down the line, what happened 3 or 4 years before. So we've got an incredible hitting team. We think we've got an Omaha team and some good pitchers, but not as deep as you'd like to be in our league. And we got upset. Coach Gutton, legendary coach, had just retired at Missouri State. His squad beats us. And it literally felt like your heart had ripped in half. We've all maybe been heartbroken with relationships or other situations. I was heartbroken. And so I go to my normal little feel-good comfort food taco stand. I ordered double. I figured I'll eat my way out of this thing tonight and go to sleep. Well, a movie ends. The tacos are gone. I'm ready to go to sleep. And the movie Tombstone comes on. And I was like, well, our season's over. Tombstone's on. I guess I'm not going to sleep. And it was pretty late. And John Curry, he's a late worker. He's a hustler. He was the AD at the time. He calls and talks about this job. And I don't know what would have happened if I would not been awake at that hour to take that call. But they were, I said, hey, I know this job's open. I don't know anybody at Tennessee, and we're trying to go to Omaha. So they kind of gave me some space. But now that our season was over, they called, and within 24 hours, there's a little more to the story, but within 24 hours, I'm signing my name. And a funny part of that, to show you how loyal Vol fans are, I brought the only orange shirt I had, just kind of in case I got to do something, or, well, it's more of Auburn type tint of orange.
I knew you were going that route. I knew that.
So fortunately, I'm not on social media, but if there's enough smoke, the fire kind of gets to me. And I know I took a lot of heat for wearing the wrong color orange when signing the contract that the coach, or I'm sorry, John Curry presented.
They didn't give you a polo already or a cap or anything to wear?
No, I'd say this dude was flying around and meeting with all kinds of people, and I don't know that he knew or I knew it was going to take this turn. It was a meeting in a Washington, D.C. airport hotel, and it just clicked. And I'm very, very fortunate, dating all the way back to being at Missouri. Coach McCann, I mentioned, as a mentor, leaves to go to K-State. Now all of a sudden there's an opening, and I'm a 23-and-a-half-year-old Big 12 assistant, hiding in the stands because I feel guilty. There's so many people that are more deserving of that job, but just real blessed how it worked out. It's crazy. To win a championship, you got to be really good, but you also got to have fortune on your side. And I know that more now than ever. We were really good. That team was really close this year. But there's so many things I look back and it's like, if this wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't have won. If we wouldn't have done this. And my career is kind of like that too. And so when guys I've coached say I want to get into coaching, the first thing I say is just make sure you don't use me or even Coach Elander as an example, because we've just been very blessed to be put in a bunch of different positive situations.
Yeah, and Coach Elander, like you mentioned, was that Arkansas player, one of the hardest workers there, similar to how you were. You bring him over to Tennessee with you. Why is that?
It kind of started with the coaching career. With him in the cage, he was always a diligent worker, but also asking so many questions. And then come to find out, now you got GroupMe and stuff like that. But I always used to have these handouts, and I'm sure players were annoyed. But just kind of little coaching points, little touch points you could present. He saved every single one of those, saved every schedule. And the guy was organized, and that's something I'm not. And that's something that has not as organized as I'd like to be. And that's something that's benefited us here is his work ethic and his organization, on top of the fact of his experience. He's been the Team USA, the All-American, the best player the other team is scouting for. Their scouting report revolves around him. So all those attributes, and the fact just that we're on the same page. You see these coaching staffs, and the ones that are able to stick together for a long time and kind of have a happy marriage. When it's not a happy marriage, you can see it and feel it across the way. And it's not like you can't win games, because you got good players, you can win games. But I think being in sync and kind of having that happy marriage is something that has served us well. And if I've done anything right, we've kind of made that a priority with the people we have in our locker room, whether it be the coach's locker room or the player's locker room, to kind of be in sync.
Yeah, in your first year as a head coach is in an SEC program. Just the magnitude of that, and what is the mindset like approaching that? And obviously you have to sell yourself for the job. What is that like? And obviously the history of Tennessee baseball and what that is going into. What was that experience and that feeling for you like?
Yeah, there was a history. I mean, Coach Delmonico had things rolling as well as any place in the country here, and there's a bunch of first rounders like Luke Hochaver, who's involved in our program, still helps out. JP Arancibia was huge in getting our program off the ground. He had just retired and helped us a bunch. So history became kind of it was almost like a class we were teaching down here to our players, what works here, what's needed, and also the coaches, like, what's our formula? But at first, to be honest with you, we were running around with our heads cut off. Frank is competitive as anybody, our pitching coach, and we wanted to win right away. And won't you know it, we kind of dumb luck our way into Garrett Crochet because we're hunting players for now. And Garrett was going to be a freshman at a junior college our first year here. Instead, he was with us. And what a weapon he was our first year. Nonetheless, that first year was about as stressful as you can get. When recruits ask about the history of our program, I always tell them, like, that first year, you walk in the office down the hallway and someone says hello to you, and you immediately bow up because everything's so what'd you say to me?
Yeah. Having a guy like Garrett Crochet, though, with how he's doing, I mean, it's pretty nice in your first year.
No, it is. And he was kind of a Swiss Army knife for us. We didn't quite know how to use him. And we also knew in the future we needed him. So we didn't want to beat down his confidence and ask him to do too much as a freshman. But it was a tense year, and it's a little wild. This past year, I didn't know we won 60 games until Hunter Ensley had told me when we were watching the scoreboard after we had won. and we won 29 our first year. We needed 30 to go to the SEC tournament. We have the worst record in SEC history of the record being we won the most games without getting to Hoover. So that doesn't get you a whole lot of
now it's changed.
disappointment.
Yeah, expedition, Odyssey.
Yeah, the tournament format has changed. But again, that first year was a building block, and I think the biggest challenge we had was to change our kids' mindsets that they actually belonged in the SEC, and they were, they were in a position to have success. But in order to be in position, we truly needed to iron out some things, get some athletes in that fit our style.
Yeah, and you're learning on the way, obviously, first-time head coach. Throughout your career up until that point, what was the most pivotal point of your career or experience?
It's interesting. I look back, unfortunately, on the losses, and kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And there's been a lot of heartbreak. But in order to have your heart broken, you've got to be in a position for that to happen. So our first regional host ever at Missouri was insane. There was over 3,000 people, which doesn't sound like a big crowd to, Arkansas or Tennessee, but that was at the time was massive for us. And there was nowhere to put everybody.
It's close to a sellout. Yeah.
Yeah. People were standing, it seemed like on top of each other. And we lose. So you kind of figure out how could we have navigated that a little bit better because it was our first go around. And again, your heart's ripped out of your chest. And I remember a couple of days, just shades drawn, a couple of my roommates who were coaches as well, just sitting and watching TV, just depressed at that loss. But you look back on that group we had, and they broke ground and did something that no one had ever done before. And we've had that here too. In 2022, that team was predicted to win a national championship, which we did not. But they won the national championship for being talked about more than maybe any college baseball team and getting people to talk either loving or hating them. And they also set records, so there was a lot of wins with that group as well. So to say there was just one moment would be tough to do, but it's that weird balance of having your heart broken, but what preceded it was a lot of great things. Otherwise, it wouldn't have hurt that bad.
Yeah, and a lot of those pivotal moments, experiences, you look back and you probably asked your dad, you relied on your dad a lot. Was he your biggest role model and mentor? And
yeah.
He still is.
Yeah, he was. And I mentioned Dave Holt and Dave Van Horn and Tim Jamison, Frank Sims at Spring Hill. These are guys you all kind of fortunately have on your Rolodex, and you can take a little bit from each guy, but you take a whole lot from somebody when you're in the house with them. But also, the days I got to play for them were awesome. There wouldn't have been those hours. But probably I look back, maybe the most valuable was just being a kid sitting on the bench. And, I liked having fun and kind of, talking with the guys. And they teach me about all kinds of different things, maybe some things I didn't need to know about at the age that I was at. But more than anything, just kind of learning how they talk and how they interact with my dad and what they're trying to do out on the field. And so those days of having the front row seat and getting to sit on the bench, I think helped educate me as much as anything on teammate stuff, competitive stuff, and the game of baseball in itself.
Yeah, and I remember when we were in Omaha, and one of the many times I talked to you and interviewed you, you said, when I think of Coach Vitello, I still think of my dad. Just the connection you have with him and just, everything you've learned from him just shows how open you are to learning from him and all these other coaches' experience, the losses, and just how willing to adapt you are.
Yeah, I think I get razzed enough by people in our building. We got a good work environment. We all give each other, crap up there, and it's fun to sit around. It's almost like a campfire when Frank is telling baseball stories. He's got so many. But when they talk, they say the real Coach Vitello, and that's my dad. So that's kind of why it sticks. And then somewhere along the line, I grew up in an age where, Bob Knight, his final straw getting fired was Hey Knight instead of Coach Knight. So I never thought I would be referred to as Tony. I think where that hit home, we're playing Auburn here and it's a 10th series. And I know I'm not supposed to be, but I'm a Sonny DeShera fan. He's Italian, but I also just love the way he approached the game and got to meet his dad. So apologies to anybody that was on that particular team. But I'm hearing Tony out of the dugout, and I was just kind of shocked. but it's a different day and age. And that's kind of how recruits or other teams or other people refer to me as that. And so when I hear Coach Vitello, I think of the guy who has won more games and coached longer than me. And, it's my dad.
Yeah. And the quote of him in Omaha when asked, says, the movie Field of Dreams. He said, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. And he said, no, this is us. This is heaven for us. You don't do any better than this. And it's just a special to hear that, the relationship you guys had and how much you learned from him and just everyone. It feels special and just long lasting.
Yeah, Omaha is heaven, I think. You started, at the top of our conversation with, that thing there's electricity in the air for a long time. I assume, in Super Bowl, I guess the week build up, but really it's for a couple days. But for Omaha, it feels like a month how long it lasts. And there's electricity in the air every single day. And I think it's really special for families to get to experience that together. And it's no coincidence. It's I think destiny that Father's Day lands, usually when Omaha is going on. And, Field of Dreams is a magical movie for a bunch of different reasons. But our sport is wrapped in tradition. And part of that tradition is the father-son interaction of playing catch and keeping score and learning the game. So, yeah, I think for our whole family, it is heaven. But I think for my dad and I, get to be there, it's definitely just that.
Yeah, and witnessing that, getting to watch his son win an SEC program, win his first national championship, and then sharing that moment with them on the field, that's got to be a memory for a lifetime.
No question. I remember, hugging my whole family and other folks, but I know exactly how that it went down with my mom and with my dad, and what it felt like and how long it lasted, and what was going on. It's crazy how well I can remember it and almost still feel it. Pretty cool.
Now, was that before or after you sprinted, leaping off the tarp into the crowd to crowd surf with the Tennessee?
That was idiotic. I mean, there's things like, I slid in front of our team one time when we advanced to Omaha. What had happened, and I'll sound like a defense lawyer here, I had left because they break down in their positions and I was getting out of their way to celebrate. Well, I was all the way to our dugout and they were yelling at me, calling me back for the team photo that they were going to do. So I had to sprint back and,
great.
Adrenaline's. So I was actually trying to get out of the way, but was brought back. So, there's moments where I love teammate and camaraderie stuff. Moments on bus trips I can remember and in the locker room, but there is no locker room access only these days. And sometimes I forget that. But every now and then I got a little chip in my brain that just says the hell with it. Even though I'm conscious and try and behave in certain situations or make sure the other team's not watching but that was a moment where, man, it'd always be fun to be a rock star. Just, stage dive into the crowd. And I guess that was the best and maybe the only time that I ever do something like that. It was fun. That was after the hugs.
Definitely the best. And winning Rome, winning Omaha after winning a championship, might as well.
Yeah, and maybe it's a tradition. I'm all for, it won't be me if we're fortunate enough, but I'm all for whoever the next team is, have at it and do whatever you think you got to do in that situation.
Yeah, so speaking of Omaha, obviously, the teams you've had that have gone there now 2 years in a row, and the team that 2022 was, the adversity they went through, and just making it to Omaha in 2023 after losing a lot of starters. Just talk to me about the challenges of, getting back to Omaha once you get there, because it's not easy.
No, it's not. And there's a lot of great teams and great coaches that don't get to experience it. But in 23, you had this cloud hanging over of the 22. We get cut short a little bit. And not only that, you have almost coaches and players looking around like, who are the next guys? Because we just lost almost the entire team.
It was a special team, and the way the season ended too.
Yeah, of contributors. And so who's going to be where and what are the roles? And there was some pitching, so we knew we'd have that. That almost became a problem. Like, hey, here's 6 or 7 no doubt big leaguers, but there's also a handful of other really gifted pitchers. How are we going to get enough innings for these guys? Oh, So there was a lot of question marks for being year 7 for us, where we thought we were on this incline and building up. And it took a while for us to figure things out, and we had to go through some things. And I know there were some team-only meetings at Blake Berg's house and, just different ways, but no one quit working towards getting there. And if, unfortunately, we couldn't go A to B, but we had to kind of snake our way around there. And next thing you know, we're playing our best ball towards the end of the season and really coming together as a team. And to make it to Omaha that particular year was great. And I've learned the hard way, when you get there, you better be ready to see a really good arm. And we saw Skeens, and I just kind of wonder.
It's a good arm.
Yeah. I just kind of wonder, and it was a competitive game, and they were in control of it, but our guys did a really good job, despite the fact he completely changed almost how we had seen him before. A lot of off-speed mix. Command was tremendous. So a lot of people wonder, well, what if we would have ran into somebody different with how well we were playing? But that's not how the deal works out, and the better team won that night. Unfortunately, we were able to win a game there, which was the first time Tennessee had done that for a while. And I think that was a huge building block. So the 22 team and the 23 team contributed so much to what went on in 24. And you could even go back further to some other guys too that helped build the thing. And it's kind of crazy, and sorry to ramble, but I've thought about this a lot lately. Augie came and spoke to our team and talked about the next decade of our program. And here in about 2 years, it'll be the end of a decade, and the stadium will finally be done the way that everybody wants it to be done. Our staff will kind of be set. We've added all these roles. Our recruiting will kind of finally kind of hit, kind of a rhythm of where we're able to compete for the best guys in the country. That would have been the best year to win a national championship with these building blocks going on. But I'm all for what went on this year. And again, the days before it all contributed to 24.
Yeah, and then, like you said, ending the 2023 season in Omaha, the special, record achieving, you getting a win in Omaha after making it Omaha, which a lot of teams don't do, like you said. Running into an arm like Paul Skeens and the arsenal of stuff he has, we've obviously seen on display, progressional level at the highest level, all started his first year. And then you come into 2024 with that taste of Omaha, and then all the hype around Tennessee baseball, especially this team, to start the season, bringing top 11 in every single poll. Everyone's talking about them. Is this going to be the year for them? What is that pressure and kind of expectation like going into the season?
Yeah, when we landed, it was the weirdest feeling in the world. I thought we were going to win. And I didn't say that to anybody. And it wasn't, I had a Future song in my headphones. It was like, we got this. It was just like a weird, I think we're going to win this thing. And a lot of it was the guys that had mapped out all along what they wanted to do that particular year. And guys were saying it out loud. And the destination was not to get to Omaha, it was to have success. So there's all these things that built into having a confident approach and almost kind of a good game plan when we got there. And again, without the year prior, would not have occurred that way. And all that's going good. And I know we're not going to face Skeens or Abbott from Virginia. By the way, that was hell watching video on that guy. And we didn't find out late who Florida State was going to use for whatever reason. And then we find out. And it's this guy, Arnold, who I don't follow stuff, but I assume he's potential first pick.
Potential top 10 pick for the talent he has.
You got to be kidding me. But our guys wouldn't be denied. And, I'm sure there's things that built into it, but right away they got to him. And that's when I kind of had a feeling of this, again, this group is going to find a way to do it, and they're not going to be denied. And if we get stopped, it's certainly going to be because somebody was just better than us. It's not going to be because we didn't have the right mindset or game plan or enough talent.
Yeah, and watching a lot of Tennessee baseball games this past season, 2024, obviously not being any in person, first time in Nelson here, super cool experience. Obviously a pleasure to be with you, but being in Omaha and watching y'all play in Omaha, my first Omaha experience was a lot in and of itself, which I enjoyed every single minute of it. It was clear to see how, like I said earlier, you treat family so important to you and so close to you. You treat this whole program and team as a family. It kind of seems to shape the approach of you as a head coach. I mean, is that kind of how your style of coaching is and why you think this team has been so close this past season?
Yeah, I think that's been our MO. Again, in 23, it took a while for various reasons to kind of get to that. But I think even in 2018, when we struggled to win games, everybody really liked coming to work together and appreciated the effort and had each other's back. And there was never a moment where, I know I said it was tense in the office, but I don't think that ever carried over in a negative way to the field. We just wanted to do better. So, you know, as I sit in this chair and the years go by, I find myself defending our program. Again, I don't follow too much, but when there's enough smoke, you know, that's what I've kind of found myself doing. So I'm saying this from my vantage point. I'm single. I don't have a family, and not that other coaches don't do it, but I think I have a unique perspective of this is my group. My family lives in Missouri. They do travel to see our games, but that's kind of what I want. It's the household I grew up in. And it's the only way I was able to make the team at Missouri and stick around was the teammate factor. A lot of guys like Coach Elander can teach how to backspin a ball because he was so good at it. And for me, I kind of had to take a master class in how to survive and be valuable on a team, even though when you're not that 3-hole hitter. So I think it's kind of become our MO. And we're blessed with a staff of guys that all work together. We've stuck around. There's been other opportunities to go other places. Anyone who's left has actually come back. And I think the players feed off that a little bit. If the coaches are like family, then we should be too. And then there's a back and forth in between the coaches and the players.
Yeah, and they have a guy like Kirby Connell, the iconic person he is. You don't want to leave. You just want to stay and help coach, you know? And so Tennessee, the university and athletics feels like a family in itself too, because we're in Omaha and you have other Tennessee coaches there, Josh Heupel, Rick Barnes, and Peyton Manning watching the Tennessee Volunteers, supporting the program and you guys, cheering you on, trying to win a national championship. What is that like to know that they're there to support y'all?
Yeah, we talked about history, and a lot of those folks are a part of history here. Tennessee athletics had it going on for quite a while in a lot of different ways. And we hit this decade, come to find out there's a lot of reasons built into it, but there was kind of a decade or so or a time frame of frustration for Vol fans of every sport. And this is a great place. I mean, based on the state, the state you're in, the university, the way it's shaped, Knoxville's phenomenal. So things should go well here. But I think they've taken off, and we've kind of revisited the golden era prior to here, if not superseded it, because things are going so well with volleyball and women's soccer and football. And the cool thing is we're all working together. And I don't, Pat Summit, when she was here, she used to rally everyone together. She kind of set the bar, but she would also rally everybody together and make sure the coaches knew each other, were working together and helping in recruiting and pushing for things for the athletes through the administration. And no one really kind of set a plan for us to do that, but just everyone seems to get along and want to help each other and supports each other too. So you end up with those guys in Omaha, and those are my buddies. We just don't get to hang out as much as we'd like to because everyone's so busy. I mean, no one's more busy than Peyton. I think he's got 75 commercials on TV right now.
Yeah.
But with the nature of coaching, there's rare moments that Coach Barnes and I, Coach Heupel and Brennan Webb, the golf coach, we get to actually hang out. But we're friends. And, I think those guys were there cheering for Tennessee athletics, but also just there as friends.
Yeah. And the game of college baseball is growing exponentially. We love to see it. The landscape as well is changing. The scholarships now increased from 11.7 to 34 scholarships, which also would, require an additional $1 million at least probably to kind of help fund that. How does that kind of shape the landscape of the future of college baseball?
Yeah, I think it changes things for sure. How you put your roster together, the conversations that take place during recruiting. I've always wished, dating back when I first started, kids could be in a position to just choose where do they want to go to school? Where do they want to live? What coaching staff do they want to work with? Who do they want their teammates to be? But money makes the world go around, unfortunately, in certain ways. And when you're divvying up scholarships and things like that. So it's going to completely change conversations in recruiting. I think we're all still a little bit in the dark on what exactly it all means and when the dates are and when you have to decide your roster. And then there's the NIL thing, which I think on the scholarship end, you look at, and sorry, I can't remember Coastal Carolina's left fielder, but he was the heartbeat of that national championship team. And come to find out, he's in debt over 6 figures to Coastal Carolina for his degree. And our sport is no better or worse than others, but we have the longest days. It's an 8-hour day from pregame meal to exiting the building after a game, at a minimum 8 hours. So for our guys to be in debt or not have all their costs neutralized when Omaha is what it is crazy. If anything, it'd be nicer, the families that are in Omaha, it's so expensive. It'd be nice if they're given a stipend as your team advances or sticks around Omaha, because again, it gets insane. But on the NIL side, I think it's a good thing for, I know the O'Bannon started it. Johnny Manziel, in my mind, was the guy that everyone wants his autograph and he can't get paid for it. Not everybody's put on a pedestal like that. But I think the guy should be able to have a little jingle in their pocket and go get a steak instead of a cheeseburger every now and then. And then if you got Kirby, you're active in the community. Kids want to have you to the birthday party because he's such a good dude with the little guys or with families. And he's got a mustache on a T-shirt. He should be able to, benefit from that a little bit. The problem with the NIL that's come up is the lies and the fibbing. It's kind of now the new scholarship. When a kid would get offered a scholarship, let's say 50% back in the day, next thing you know, in the dugout to his buddies, instead of having 2 schools offered 50%, he's got 6 offers and they've all offered 85%. And then the coach tells parents, and then it just turns into this big, guessing game, and NIL has turned into that. It'd be nice if we actually knew what was going on. That would help clarify things and make it go a little bit better, but that's a big ask.
Yeah, it's going to take time, obviously, jump through the hoops and figuring it out. We do know that Lindsey Nelson being an upgrade, a well-deserved one and well-needed one that we're going to all love to see and you're enjoy experiencing, from just about 4,000 seats to over 7,500 seats and a $100 million renovation. What is that going to mean to the program?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to hurt SeatGeek and StubHub and all those a little bit. I mean, it's pretty cool to be playing somebody in the league and see on StubHub, tickets are $600 and they're in high demand, but there's kind of a limit. I mean, it is college baseball. It's supposed to be cheaper than going down and watching the Braves. So it'll be nice that will kind of settle in the supply and demand deal a little bit, but also we'll have a park that is arguably the best in the country. And I know people want to slash my tires or whatever, but this is arguably the best fan base in the country too, by numbers and also just how active they are. So instead of having this deal where it's 4,500 seats and then adding standing room, 6,000, 6,500, it being a huge crowd for us, and people saying, man, it's not as big as where I worked before, but they're arguably the most intense and active group. We'll be able to grow in number and hopefully keep that little niche we've got of, man, they're close to the action and they're as active as a fan base going. And, 8,000 might seem like 18,000 when this whole thing's done. And the cool thing, the way the administration done it, is we've left a little room for more growth too. But it'll be a big scene when this whole thing's done in a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I know you are. The future of Tennessee baseball, what is that?
That's a good question, because we got so many new faces this year. I've run into fans and, hey, got Omaha hotel booked already. And it's like, that's good. I hope I see you. I hope I see you there,
yeah.
Or I might be recruiting. You don't really know what the future holds in any sport, but in our sport in particular, when you have arms and you got guys swinging, with these baseballs moving in different directions, it's expect the unexpected. And we have so many new faces now. We do return a few key leaders, but there's so many new faces in our group. So we're literally attacking this thing day by day. And so I don't know if what I said earlier made sense about the timing of winning a national championship, but it's nice that we won. But we are still on this incline of the facilities are increasing. Our staff is getting sorted and improved every day. Our roster, as far as recruiting goes, we're kind of, you're never going to master it, but that's getting headed in a direction that we thought. So there is still this incline of progress, and hopefully that means improvement too. So it'll be interesting what we can do with that. But in our league, you can take it to the bank. You're going to take some lumps, and hopefully you're good enough to dish some out. And so we'll see what this year looks like. But on the whole, we are still kind of in this progress incline, which makes it fun to think about. Still adding fans. There's still people I see on the streets. Hey, I didn't used to watch the baseball team, or I didn't used to be a college baseball fan, but I'm diving into it now. So the timing is fun.
Yeah. And so when it comes to the future of Tennessee and your legacy, what is one thing you want people to remember you by and why?
I think the family thing you brought up was great. And, to the outside world or competitors in recruiting, again, it might sound a little cliche. So to me, I would break it down more in a sports term of just the teammate thing. I want that to be the thing that we're good at every single year. And the life lesson of being in our league for 6 or 7 years and kind of figuring out, if you're just hanging your hat on a national championship or trophies, you're playing a dangerous game. One that, in our league especially may work out in your favor because we've had a lot of champions, but you're playing a dangerous game. And last year we had a memorable team meeting where it's like, hey, when we come to work every day, just want to be, juiced to see the guys in the office, the guys in the locker room, in the dugout, and make it a party during stretch and then go from there. And obviously we want to improve every day. And then on game day, we want to compete like crazy. But just the teammate thing, like, hey, that guy was a pretty good teammate to administration or the other coaches or even the frats or sororities that make up our fan base and are the most active kids out there in the stands. And then got the guys whatever they needed to pursue their dream. Because now our program and our league, if they come here, they're probably wanting to be in the big leagues. And a lot of them probably passed up an opportunity to start that dream in the draft and came here. So just the teammate thing, I would say.
Yeah. Well, Coach, thank you for taking time to join me. It's been such a pleasure to learn more about your program and go behind the scenes with you. I'm excited to follow along Tennessee baseball, your journey as well. Just can't thank you enough.
I appreciate the compliments and you shining a spotlight on our program because, again, we are still trying to get better around here. And glad you appreciate some of the things that are going on. Hopefully that continues.
Absolutely. Tennessee baseball,